Hello, folks. How you doing? Good to be with you. I wanted to talk about the law of necessity, which deals with conditions under which something that is willed to occur must occur. Once the conditions are set, okay, the correct conditions, the willed event or the event necessarily takes place. So there are impediments to this, of course. So, for example, a person says, well, I want to get wealthy. Well, they might if they keep trying. But they may say, well, I have everything in place. But the event is not taking place, you see. Well, there are impediments. One of the main impediments to the law of necessity coming forth relative to what a person has willed or something that they want or desire. That desire itself, not the will, but that desire itself is a passion. And passions interfere, you see. So in order for the law to take place relative to what a person wants or the person wills, okay, he must open the way. Opening of the way means clearing the way of emotions, passions, desires, emotions, so forth and so on. It interferes because in order to open the way, well, then we must get rid of the passions. In other words, passions tie us to earth, the earthy way, the negative way. In this sense, passions tie us to earth. So the person then must dissociate him or herself from the passions, emotions, and desires. He must seek a state of equilibrium and balance. He must seek a state that they have the concept or law called regression toward the mean. The mean is the average, a state of balance and equilibrium. Our whole world tends towards equilibrium and balance. So does human nature. But the human, with his desires and ambitions, whatever, his greed, stops him or her from experiencing this balance, which is necessary for the law of necessity to take place in favoring the person, favoring what the person has willed to come about. So I'll talk about the most people probably have heard of it, Isis and Osiris. Isis and Osiris. Isis and Osiris, these are the Greek names, okay, which is fine, okay. The Kimite names, that is the ancient Egyptian names, was Osiris, A-U, Osiris, and Osset. They're the Kimite names for Isis and Osiris. All right. Same thing. Matter of fact, through transliteration, you can change the Osiris, which starts with the A-U-S-A-R, and the Osset, A-U-S-E-T. You can change Osset to Isis. Okay. the AU stands for the ever coming, the same as IU. IU, the ever coming child, something like that. The AU and Osiris stands the same thing, you know. Osiris, AU, IU, the ever coming child, IU Sa, or IU Su, the ever coming. Well, anyway, getting back to the Osirian legend, we'll pick up on it where the god Osiris, okay, is laying on a bier, hawk-headed. Now, remember, what we're doing here is talking about a situation where, or conditions in wherein the law of necessity would take place in our favor. You know, that's going to work anyway. The law will always work, but it doesn't necessarily work in our favor. It can work against us. So when the person's got to sort of know what he's doing or know what she's doing, so that this law, it's going to occur, something's going to happen, that this law will work in the favor of the person or the practitioner, the person who is willing some event to take place. So we have Osiris lying on a bier, hog-headed, and he's in the what you call, they call him still of heart. Still of heart. And this is, we see him in what we call the dead man pose. He's laying out like a dead man on a bier, right? So, in yoga, for example, they have what you call a dead man pose. It's like what you call them, the asanas, the dead man pose. Because here we're talking about seeking a state of equilibrium and balance, you see, which opens the way. It's an opening. It opens the way for our will to to proceed unimpeded. Because in this pose, or in this state of mind, there are no things. No thinking is taking place. Like in a stupor. It's a dead man pose. Now, the hawk, we have the hawk there. The hawk then represents a situation where the will divine is not impeded, because the hawk, for example, who has perfect sight, we'll say, the hawk could be up on a mountain and he could spot his prey, you know, way down below, you know, and he sets out, he dives down to capture his prey unimpeded. So here we have extra sight or good sight, increased perceptual capacity, it's the hawk, and the hawk is unimpeded when it goes after its prey because he sees what he wants, he sees how to get there, and he goes for it. This is the will of the human when it is unimpeded. When the human wills something to be, the will must not be impeded by debris, such as our passions and the fear. Passions are blinding, so the hawk is not going to see his way clear to his target if he's being blinded by passion. So now, we see that the way is clear. Now, what Osiris wants to do, okay, is to transform into a son that must be created. The son is Heru, who later becomes the solar god. So Heru is the child sun god, who later becomes chief of the gods, so to say, because he has his way as the will unimpeded. He says that he has, when he comes forth, when he's born into the world, so from by Isis and nourished by Nephthys and nurse. Heru says that he has come to carry out the will of his father, hence the hawk-headed father laying on the bier. So Heru and the father, Asar or Osiris, assimilate. They become one. After the child has sort of become the solar god, he assimilates his father to him. Now, who is this father, though? When we bring it down to the human level, who is the father? Or the mother, really? So all this mythology stuff here is taking place within the human being. It's not something happening out there, really. It takes place within the human being. It is the human being who seeks equilibrium so that his will move towards what he, the human being, desires or wills to be. The will would take place. It would travel straight towards what this person wants. But the wills must be unimpeded by debris such as our passions or desires or greed, these driving forces, which many people get what they want through this driving forces because but they tend to pay maybe a little, they're not necessarily happy, They still go through the ups and downs that everybody else goes through emotionally because they haven't quelled the emotion, okay? So anyway, Heru comes into the world nourished by Nephthys, but he's got to be purified as a child. He's got to be purified. Because when he comes into the world, he comes forth with negative energy, hence his mom. Well, this is the mythology. So Isis then. He comes forth in a negative state, and so he has to be nourished, you know what I mean, or purified, and this is done by the nursemaid, who is Isis' sister and a sister of Osiris, and they all married up there together, according to the mythology. And so the Nephthys is the nursemaid, okay, and she has to do with breath. She has to do with, the breathing force. She also has to do with the imagination, which plays a very important role for the human being, okay. And so this negative energy must become positive in order for the child to become the solar god. See? So when this purification and everything takes place, of necessity, the child becomes a solar god. You can't stop it. You can't hold it back. Once the conditions are set, the willed event will take place. It has no other choice due to the law of necessity. Okay. And this requires the purification process wherein the negative energy becomes positive. The negative energy is made into positive energy. And this is the light. This is the light that a person will see within himself. A bright light. Okay. Now we have people in ancient times and even today, people paint themselves white all over. We see it in Africa, we see it in Australia, we see it in some Asian countries, we see it in the South Pacific, etc. People sometimes doing their spiritual exercises when it's painted all white. It's a spirit. This symbolizes spirit. And purification, coming forth by day, coming forth in the light. Okay, folks, good talking to you, and I hope you got some understanding of this law of necessity, and that these things must take place necessarily when conditions are set right for them to occur. This occurrence takes place within the human, not out here somewhere. Okay, folks, have a good one, and talk to you again soon. Thank you, and subscribe, and bye.